Hello everybody, how are you today? This is your Meadow here for the day, and this video is going to be quite short actually because of a number of things. I'll just explain that real quickly here before we get started. So, like I was saying, this is going to be a full-on inventory tutorial. Like, this is the first part of it, how to make a weapon wheel, then I'll show you how to, implement if you have weapons or items in here, like to put it in the player's hand when you have it selected. However, I have actually never done a full-fledged inventory, and it's taken me a while to figure it out, because I like to know that I at least have, somewhat close to the best solution for things before I show you. I don't want to teach you wrong, is one of my biggest fears. So, I've worked on trying to make an inventory all day yesterday, and it was quite frustrating. I didn't have a good time yesterday. So, it's still gonna take me a while to figure it out, apparently. But as soon as I do, I will start posting it. I already have mostly figured out how to do a Zelda style, like Link's Awakening, 2-slot inventory. Like, that's easy. It's making it... But what I was trying to do was make it rearrangeable, and if I forget about that, it'll probably be a lot easier. That said, in this episode, all we're really going to do is fix a problem that somebody had in the last episode, and that is, well, I can't believe I didn't notice it actually. It's that if you rotate the wheel around a few circulations, you'll notice that it's starting to get a little off-center. See, this dot is nowhere near in front of that arrow. Well, this only happens in certain instances. For example, if you change this to have only 6 weapons, it will work perfectly, no matter how many times you rotate it. The real problem here is that 360, which is the number of degrees in the circle, is not divisible by 7. So we're going to have to make some changes here to make that work. Because if we start a frame, add this to the debugger, this handy little tool up here, you can go in here, and I really hope the definition's high enough that you can see this, but you can see all the numbers going on. And so naturally, like in the case of 6 weapons, we'd have 360 divided by 6, which would be 60. In this case, for some reason, it goes to 51, and as you can see, rotate it all the way around and it doesn't quite get to 360. If you keep rotating it around, the angle gets huge, and slowly you'll just lose. That's supposed to be 720 right there, but it's not. And so after that you can start seeing how it gets off-centered, because this is supposed to be, what is that supposed to be? Item ID 30. Well, whatever it's supposed to be, it's certainly not that. For some reason I'm failing at math right now. But it's supposed to be a multiple of 360, and it's not. So, first thing we want to do is get rid of that angle being so huge. So, we're going to start by going in here and adding a new event. We're going to say when item ID is greater than the item num. And what that's saying is, if we go back out here to the debugger, if you rotate it, the item ID goes up by 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and see, when you start, you're on the sword, and you end on the sword. However, if you keep going, it starts getting all, huge angle. It's not 360 anymore. And if you go backwards, of course, you start getting into negatives, and all this could be kind of bad later on, assuming you're going to code this to actually have the weapon in the player's hand. So what we want to do is when the item ID is actually greater or equal, than the item num, we're going to set the item ID to 0, and we're going to set angle to be, or we're going to set the angle, is this right? Yes, we're going to set the angle to the angle it has minus 360. Now, I wish I had enough time to make an understanding segment for this, but I do not. But what that's going to do in one direction, da 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 da. But anyway, it's going to set it. Wow, that sure didn't work. It's okay. I know what the problem is. So when it gets above 360, or when the item num gets up to the sword again, it's going to reset it all the way back so that it's back to slot 1. Problem. Remember, it's not divisible by 7, so it's going over what it should and causing problems. So we need to, and this isn't going to work immediately, but don't sweat it. We'll get it working. When it's lower than 0. So that doesn't look right. I think it is, actually. When the item ID is lower than 0, meaning you've gone backwards so far that it's going into the negatives, now it's going to set the item ID to, let's see, the item num. So we have to go in here, get item num -1. So it's going to set it just 1 short of the highest number, or the number of items. And we're also going to set its angle to, again, its own angle, plus 360. Alright, so actually to show this in work, like to show it actually working, let's change the item number to something that is divisible by 32, or in 360, not 32. And now let's see what happens. You're going up, up. Let's see, this is how the number should look. And see that? As soon as you get up to 360, or the item number is up to the, or the item ID, sorry, is up to the item number, it's going to reset it to 0. And since it sets the angle to this -360, it goes to -60. It looks like nothing ever happened. If you didn't know the math going on behind the scenes, it would look like, you know, you're just rotating it perfectly. This is nice because it never goes out of the range of the item IDs. So if you want to say when item ID 5 is selected, or in this case 3, you know, set to the item in that slot, which is the dog head. If you had it so it went all the way up to, you know, 47, well, that's not going to work because there is no item in slot 47. So for things like that, that's a good fix. Now, for the, when you have it something that's not divisible by 30, or, I don't know why I keep saying 32, 360, then that's when the problems start. First of all, we're going to go in here and edit this just very slightly. So you have this equation here, item ID, item wheel center, times 360 divided by item num of the item wheel center. We're going to add parentheses around item wheel center, and we're going to say, within those parentheses, times 1.0. Now this is really counterintuitive, but for some reason, sometimes Multimedia Fusion 2, and I've never found the reason for this, will just not do decimal points. In this case, it's kind of important because, you know, the decimal points are more exact. However, it's still messed up because I'm doing it by a certain increment that it doesn't have. Okay, so here's where it gets kind of, this is going to make the code look a lot more cluttered. Make sure to save often. Save. But it's very essential. So, let's see. When the angle of this is greater than the angle to B, actually, to start off, let's copy and paste this. So we're going to be using these same events, and we're also going to delete the actions. I just want to use these. Copy it over. So edit one of them and say when the angle is greater, so this is when it's greater than the angle to B, so it's like 57 when the angle to B is 60. But it's lower or equal to, let's see, angle to B plus, I'm going to do this again, 360 divided by item num. And can do the, there's a lot of parentheses going on here, times 1.25. or 0.125. And I put one too many or something. And it's still not working. Okay, count the parentheses. 1, 2. Whoa, I put far too many. There we go. So it's greater than the angle to B, but it's also lower than the angle to B. Oops. Is that right? So it should be between. What I want to do is make it so when the angle is between the angle that it already is, and between the angle that it is and an increment, like a proper increment between the angle. Man, I really should make an understanding segment for this. But, okay. So you have an angle. This is the angle to B. It's just 0. And you have an angle right here, and you're trying to subtract enough to make it reach this, say like 15 degrees. And the problem is, if it's lower than that, which for some reason it is when the number of weapons is greater than 7, or equal to 7, if it subtracts that much, you'll end up down here. And that'll mess up everything, because then it's not equal to the angle to B, and it can't move then. So I want to say that when it's between, like say this is an increment, like 1/4 or whatever, when it's between that and the angle it should be, it's just going to set it to this angle. I don't think that made any sense, but you can just trust me on this. Actually, I might cut this out if I screw this up badly enough, but let's keep going. We'll figure it out. Oh, you know what? I think I did that wrong. Okay, so when it's greater than the angle to B, which means it's below, or yeah, something like that. It's also lower or equal than the angle to B minus that. I think this is supposed to be a plus. If not, we'll fix it. Yeah, sorry, this is kind of a rushed episode because I have to go out very soon. So I'm just trying to. I promised you guys a video, and I want to be more present on my YouTube channel because it feels good to have people rely on you. But yeah, I have been kind of neglecting you guys. I'm sorry, but I'll try to reply to almost every comment on my videos from now on. So if you comment, even if you say something like "this is great," I'll probably just say thanks or something like that. But yeah, so you can expect more comments from me in the future. Alright, it works. So I guess I did it right. Well, now I can properly tell you to well, that's awesome. I wasn't expecting it to work on the first try, to be honest. So you notice that I moved these above the previous events. Well, there's a reason for that. Order event, or... Whoa. Sorry, my microphone just fell over for no reason. That was kind of crazy. That would probably tell you... Whoa. Alright, technical difficulties. Cutting out for a second. Cutting out for a second. Okay, hi, we're back. Sorry about that. Wow. So yeah, I have this really weird, dilapidated, setup for my mic, and it kind of just failed, collapsed on me completely. So now I'm just holding it. So actually, you should probably be able to hear me a lot better. So, where was I? I totally forgot, actually. Oh, it's because, yeah, I was talking about setting these things above these events. If you don't, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's kind of snapping, or at least it should be, snapping to the angle. There's a bigger increment than usual. It skips a frame, kind of, is what I mean. So the events are read from top to bottom. Man, this is going to be 20 minutes long, even though I'm not doing much. The events read from top to bottom. So it's going to go da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I'm going to calculate these angles. Da-da-da. I'm going to subtract that or add that. oh, when it's within this range, I'm gonna set it to the angle. So if it, well, it's not really terribly important to understand like all the little ins and outs, but basically it'll, if you don't set these above this, it'll calculate that and then calculate that, which will usually result in a huge jump in the angles depending on what you're doing. But yeah, you don't want that, so change the order. Just trust me. Do you trust me? Trust me. Like Aladdin. Okay, so I think that should make it work all the time. Even if you change it to something ridiculous, like not 79, but something that's clearly not divisible by 360 and like 37. One, all of your weapons will be kind of concentrated, but yeah, if you go in here to our beloved debugger, you'll see that it'll always be exact, even though the angles are really bizarre. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, so one more thing to talk about is that on my channel, if you look on it, there will actually be a list of upcoming tutorials now on the right side of it. So if you're watching this on my channel, it'll be like somewhere over here to the right, like way over past the frame of the video. And it'll say what I'm planning on doing, and it'll also say what the difficulty is of those tutorials. You know, like how advanced it is and stuff. Most of them are pretty simple. Somebody asked for a Goomba thing in my last video. Somebody asked for after images. Somebody asked for moving platforms, which I can't believe I haven't done yet, but I guess I haven't. So yeah, I'm going to be hopefully a lot more present on this whole YouTube thing. And yeah, so it's almost been 20 minutes now. 20 minutes for what? Actually, I'm going to cut out that whole mic debacle, so that'll probably cut out a minute or so. But hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you hopefully very soon for the rest of the inventory tutorial, because yeah, I like to have things memorized before I actually try and show them to people, so that you don't have me screwing up and stuff like I kind of did in this episode. Anyway, I'm talking up a storm, so I'm just going to shut up now and say goodbye, and hope you have a good day. Goodbye.